Welcome back to the Outdoor Sports Club channel, ladies and gentlemen. I want to talk about buying new pistols or new guns, specifically about people asking advice on buying new guns and people giving advice on buying new guns. So I'm not a firearms expert. I just happen to shoot more and have more guns and have researched more guns than most of the people that I know. Now, if you look at the people that are in my YouTube videos, they typically have more information than I do and shoot more than I do, and they're better at it than I do than I am. But I have, a bigger sphere of influence where for most of the people that I'm around a lot, I have more knowledge about guns than they do. I'm not an expert, but I've noticed some tendencies, and this isn't just with guns, this is with anything, where all adults know the difference between fact and opinion, but when they're asked their opinion on something, a lot of times we say it as fact. Something we don't need as a shooting community are people who aren't happy with the guns that they bought as first-time gun buyers. You don't need someone buying a gun and then never shooting it because it's not really what they needed, not really what they wanted, it doesn't feel good in their hands, they don't like shooting it, it's just not fun. Even if they buy a gun and all they're wanting to do is go shoot it at the range, if they don't have a good experience with it, they're not going to shoot it and they're not going to be a good shooter long term. Okay, so we don't need that, and when I see people give what I consider to be not necessarily wrong advice, but bad advice to new shooters or people trying to buy guns, it just sort of bothers me. So I want to talk about a couple of the things that I've seen, and then what my tactic is or what my theory is on this. And I'm not saying that I'm absolutely right. I'm not saying that it's the best way, but and oftentimes I'll talk about some deficiencies in my theory that I run into oftentimes as well. So the first thing is that drives me nuts are the people that throw out their opinions as if it's just absolute gospel. It's a universal law. And I tend to make fun of 45 ACP folks and 1911 folks for this one, but the truth is everybody does it. It's just that I'm biased towards 9mm, and so when 9mm people do it, I kind of notice, but it's sort of like, yeah, 9mm, it's better. But to be fair, we shouldn't be doing that either. You don't necessarily want to guide a new shooter into any caliber. It's not you that's needing to shoot the gun. It's the person that's trying to buy the gun. So one example of this, just to sort of illustrate the point, was this was a long time ago. I was at Bass Pro Shops. I'm kind of waiting on my turn to ask them some questions, and I'm looking around, and this young couple comes up over on my left, and the guy goes over and he asks them, what can I help you with? They're over by the pistols, and I hear the guy say, yeah, my girlfriend is looking to buy a pistol. What do you recommend? And I'm paraphrasing here, but this is really close to what he said. The guy said, well, you got your 45 that's for home defense and self-defense. 40 Smith & Wesson is for concealed carry, and 9mm is for target shooting only. But he said it in like this dude hated 9mm, and the only reason he was given 40 Smith & Wesson a place in position was because, you might find one that's a little bit smaller than the 45. This guy was a 45 guy. And I understand, people like 45, it has some benefits over 9mm. It does. If you can shoot a 45 well, okay. That's I don't have a problem with it. I might make fun of it, but, I've got my 45, and I'm glad I have it. I make fun of 1911 guys too. The truth is, I don't want the OU Sooner fans and the Dodge drivers to feel like I'm just attacking them. So I make fun of 1911 people too, and I'm just making jokes. I'm trying to be funny. I do make fun of all three of those groups all the time, but I don't hate those people. I don't dislike them. Most of the people that you see in my videos when we go camping, I'm like the only one that's not in a Dodge vehicle. So anyway, I poke fun. They poke fun at 9mm guys. That's okay. I don't get the animosity. I've run into a lot of animosity, and I don't get it. I also don't get why you would tell a new shooter that if you want this gun for home defense, you got to get a 45. I just don't understand why you'd say that. if it were me today, I would have walked down there and I would have gone like, whoa, I've been breaking the rules, man. I went target shooting with my 45. You got to help me. Like, I need 3 guns. I need one in 9mm, I need one in 40 Smith & Wesson, I need one in 45, and they've all got to be the exact same size, the exact same weight, hold the same capacity, and recoil the exact same amount. I need that. You got to sell it to me right now, because I've been breaking the rules this whole time. I don't know. I wouldn't have been able to stop myself from doing that if that were me today. Back then, I just sort of rolled my eyes. That's what I'm talking about when it's a person who takes what they like, what I like, and I'm going to tell you as a new shooter that you have to get a revolver, or you have to get a 45, or you have to get a 9mm. It doesn't matter what it is. If I say you have to get one because it's what I like, I'm wrong. Okay? So let's move real quickly on to the next one. And this is a nuanced difference. So this is the person who takes what they know about you and your demographic, and they apply some arbitrary rules that they've made up for your demographic. So they're trying to help you. They're not telling you what they want, but they're telling you what they think you have to have. So this I see a lot with women shooters and new shooters. So if a woman, I've seen this time and time again, if a woman asks an experienced shooter, I'm looking for a concealed carry, there are a ton of cases where the guy, or the girl for that matter, but I mostly see it with men telling women shooters what they need. And I'm not saying any of this from a social justice warrior standpoint. I take Ben Shapiro's stance on social justice, and that is if you have to modify the word justice, it's not justice. So I'm not doing it from that standpoint. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense. So a woman comes up to you and says, I want a concealed carry, gun. What do you recommend? If you say, oh, you're a woman, you may leave that part out. That might be the silent part. But in your head, you're thinking, this is a woman. She needs to get a 38 special revolver. That's it. Like, that's, then you're wrong. You may not be wrong. You're wrong in your approach. Okay, I want to make that difference, because it may be that this woman winds up with a 38 special Smith & Wesson snub-nose revolver. Okay. But I've heard people say, if you're a new shooter, you need a revolver. That should be your first pistol. And the reasons are always because it's more reliable, it's simpler, it doesn't jam, it doesn't break, yada, yada, yada. I find revolvers to be more complex than automatics. And I know that there are probably some people that are going to yell at their computer screens and throw stuff at me right now for saying that. But that's just the way I find it. I don't like revolvers. And revolvers aren't as simple or as reliable as you might think. Okay, so you got your double actions, you got your single actions, you got your double singles, or single doubles, however you want to say it. You got the cylinders that flop out the side, you got the breakovers, you got the ones with the loading gate, you got some that pop all the empty shells out, and you got some that don't. It can be kind of complicated, where automatics share some or have some complications that revolvers don't have, but it comes down to personal preference. That's the point I'm trying to make. It comes down to personal preference, and if a new shooter, is guided into a revolver in a good, healthy way, then they're probably going to like it. If they're guided into a semi-auto, a good, healthy way, they're probably going to like it. So that I don't like. The reliability part, and I'm not meaning to argue this stuff in this video. This is just sort of side chatter. The reliability thing, I will absolutely admit that, if you got a Smith & Wesson J-frame, the chances of it getting out of time or breaking or jamming or something like that are pretty slim compared to even really good semi-automatics. At least that's my experience. I've had revolvers break before, and I've had revolvers jam, and I've had revolvers get out of time where they don't want to lock up properly, or the cylinder gets out of alignment so it won't shoot. That stuff can happen. I think there is some merit to the argument that it's a little bit more reliable, or can be. But to think that there's no semi-automatic in the world that a woman can pull the slide back on, or pop a mag in, or load a mag for, I think is asinine. I think that is an absolutely moronic position to have. If a woman feels comfortable shooting a semi-auto, she can get used to the rest of it. So and a man for that matter. There's some men are as strong as other men. So you may have a man who finds a pistol that he likes, but the slide is really hard to pull back for him. He can do it, but maybe it's hard. I don't know. Maybe he chooses to go with another pistol. Maybe he chooses to break that one in and figure out a good way to rack the slide. The point I'm trying to make is not that women are weak and men are strong, or that women can do, or women should have semi-automatics, or should have revolvers. I'm trying to make the point that you've got to try to help somebody get steered into a gun that works for them. So those are the two primary examples of things that kind of burn me up a little bit. And that happens on other things too. Like I just heard one recently on optics where a guy was like, oh, you got to go get a Vortex optic. He didn't tell him 3X, 1X, 4X. He didn't tell him, or adjustable or whatever. He just said, go get a Vortex. You'll love it. And now he redeemed himself and he followed it up with, offering to let the guy go shoot his AR-15 with his Vortex on it. So I thought that was good. But my theory is, if somebody comes up to you, and for those of you that are asking people for advice, this is what I think you should expect. If somebody comes up to me and asks me for advice on buying a new pistol, I typically will start off saying, what is it that you're after? Are you just after a pistol to go get used to shooting pistols with? Or are you after a self-defense gun? Or are you after, or do you care? Or is it all of the above? And if it's all of the above, we got to be careful because, do you want a truck or do you want a car? You don't necessarily want to wind up with an El Camino because you can't haul as much as you could in the truck, and it's not as nice of a car as what you wanted or whatever. And if you like El Caminos, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make fun of El Caminos. They can be cool, I guess, but they're like capri pants. What are they, Are they pants or are they shorts? Is it a truck or is it a car? You got to be careful going with the jack of all trades, master of none road. I've gone down that road before. I'm usually not happy with the result. You're usually better off to buy two, to buy one for this and one for that, or whatever works for you. It's complex. That's usually where I start. And let's just say, for example, that they say I want a concealed carry gun. Then I say, okay, how do you think you're going to carry it? Is this going to be in a purse? Is this going to be in a pocket? Is this going to be inside the waistband, ankle holster? What is it? And then we start talking about sizes and things like that. Do you want like the, pretty dadgum compact 9mm? And you're going to have to sacrifice some things if you get this, because this little Kel-Tec, it stinks to shoot. I don't like shooting it. I hardly ever shoot it because you can't hit anything with it. I mean, you can. It's not that bad, but it's hard to shoot. Is it okay if you step it up a little bit? Make it a little bit easier to shoot, maybe a little bit more reliable, hold more capacity? Do you need to start off with, like a 22? Now, this is a full size. 22, you can get one of the smaller 22s and maybe conceal it. I'm not a huge fan of the idea of concealed carrying a 22, but it's better than nothing if that's your goal. Or do you want, a full size, and are you going to be able to carry that in your purse, for instance? If you're a woman, are you going to carry that in your purse? Again, this one's kind of hard to pull back, so there may be some merit to that, but it's something that people need to figure out on their own, or with your help. So we talk about those things. I talk about my preferences. So, like I said, I prefer 9mm. I will tell somebody, here's what I think about a 9mm. I like it because of X, Y, and Z. There are some people that don't like it because you get less energy. It's going faster, but it has less energy typically than a 45 ACP. 40 Smith & Wesson's kind of middle of the road. I usually don't talk too much about 40 Smith & Wesson, and maybe I should, but I'll throw out some different options, and I'll say, hey, if you're really feeling adventurous, we got 357 SIG, we got 10mm. If you want something a little bit lighter and a little bit smaller, the 380 is an option. There are some calibers that I will say shy away from, and those are things that I think you can scientifically and you can actually, without too much personal preference, you can say, this is probably not a good idea. But the best thing you can do for a new shooter who's looking for a gun, and this is where I go, I try not to fill them up with too much information at first, because it's sort of like drinking from a fire hose. You just can't, if you're a really new shooter, you just can't fathom it all. So that's the deficiency that I wanted to talk about, where you either overload them or don't load them up with enough information. A lot of times people are coming to you because they want an easy answer, and if you give them an easy answer, they may not be happy when they make the decision. If you help them through the process, they might be happy. But there's that risk of overloading them and scaring them away, or making them just say, this is too much, I'm just going to make a decision. Or you may not give them enough information and then they're sort of confused. But give them some information, help them through that process, but then the best thing you can do is say, like, I've got, what do I have? I've got 5 guns here, like, right here. I could take somebody shooting right now and just say, we're going to take all 5 of my guns, and you're going to shoot them. You're going to shoot a 22, you're going to shoot 3 9mm, and you're going to shoot a 45. I could get the other guys in the Outdoor Sports Club to show up, and they got way more guns than I do. We could shoot 1911s, we could shoot revolvers, we could shoot a black powder revolver if you wanted to. Just, you know, almost anything you want. Not necessarily every gun in the world, but we could get you narrowed down to where, you know, if you want something about like this, you know, we could shoot this, we could shoot a Walther PPS, we could shoot a couple other guns that are similarly sized. We could shoot one of these in a 45. I could get my hands on that because I've got a friend that has one just like that, but it's a 45. So that's sort of what I'm getting at. Now, not everybody has access to that, and I know that we don't always want to go down to the range and spend money on guns that we may never want, but it's a good idea to shoot the gun you think you're going to get. And to shoot, if you don't know what gun you're going to get, handle as many guns as you can. Go down to the gun store and just handle them. And then if you find a few that you're not quite sure, you know, how those are going to behave when you get to shooting them, find a place to rent them. I know it costs money, but find a place to rent them, get some shots on them, and then maybe you're closer to making a decision. Again, the idea is, I'm not trying to belabor the point, but the idea is to help a new shooter, or as a new shooter, if you're the one asking the advice, to find some real world data points and experience to help you make an informed decision and a good decision so that you're happy with the one that you made. If you just say, well, my buddy over here said that I should get a Kimber Compact 1911, so that's what I'm going to get. You might love that gun. It's a good gun. You might hate it, and you might never shoot it, and then it doesn't serve the purpose that you wanted, and then you're trying to sell it and buy a new one. That's not the end of the world. You can do that, but it might cause a lot of shooters to just kind of go, I don't really, this is too much work for me. Everything in the world, everything in life has a trade-off somewhere, has a downside somewhere. So if I tell you that this 9mm, that 9mm as a cartridge does not have any downsides, I'm wrong. Okay? Compare it to other calibers. There is something that this thing trades to get lower recoil, higher capacity, or higher muzzle velocity, or even compared to some other bullets to get a bigger bullet. This sacrifices something to get there. 45 sacrifices something to get a bigger diameter bullet. Okay? Everything is a sacrifice, every decision that gets made. So if you're asking for advice and they say, oh man, this pistol, there's nothing wrong with it, this is the perfect pistol, it's got everything, they might be right that it's the best pistol for you, but they're wrong that there's nothing wrong with it. There's going to be something wrong with it. Either it's going to be more expensive, or it's going to be heavier, or it's going to recoil more, or it's going to have lower capacity, or something than another pistol. That's what makes all this stuff in life so fun and so complex, and that's why you guys that are asking questions are asking questions, and that's why you guys that are giving advice are giving advice, is because that's the way the world works. It's like trying to buy a car or a computer or a kitchen knife or I don't know, a TV. It's like anything. You gotta go collect data, and it's complicated, and the marketing schemes are not necessarily built to make sure that you have all the information. They're built to make you buy their stuff. And everybody has an opinion, and everybody has the thing that they think is best. So hopefully this was helpful. I'm hoping. I'm going to cut it off here. This video is probably overly long, like most of my talking videos. But anyway, again, hope it's helpful, and thanks for watching.